Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cool Kids channel once again. My name is Gaxiola. We are joined by the right dude, KitchenAid Whiskey Jones, and the Geek Informant. Y'all know who we are. You know how we roll. So let's get into it. Today we will be talking about the latest Lucasfilm offering. Bad Wi-Fi again. All right. Bad Wi-Fi again. I'll just have to go with it. As I said, two of us liked it, two of us did not. So let's get into it. I think it's safe to say that, at least per my expectations, I was pretty skeptical about this film, given the disaster that was The Rise of Skywalker, and just knowing just the trilogy as a whole. There was no plan. It had no roadmap, so it was a huge mess. So I honestly did not have that much hope that they would do any better with a new Indiana Jones movie. That is another beloved Lucasfilm property. Everybody loves this character. So I think it's an understatement to say that they had a hell of a legacy to live up to. And for the most part, I actually think they did. It's not an amazing installment that trumps any of the original trilogy, but for the most part, I was really getting into the emotional weight of the story. At this point in his life, we see him as this broken man. He's divorced. He's lost his son, which that may end up pleasing the Crystal Skull haters, may not. Who knows? But we then see his goddaughter come into his life, which for some reason is never ends up being mentioned in any of the other movies. But what the hell? I accept your premise. And I gotta say, premise-wise, I actually think the idea of the story is really great. Once the villain's motivations are revealed for why he wants to dial, it raised the stakes for me, and I was like, all right, this makes for a pretty worthy final fight for Indiana Jones, given what the stakes are. And I think it's safe to say that the acting all around is excellent. While I'm not a fan of every single character in this movie, I liked every single performance. Harrison Ford is, of course, amazing. Go figure. Mads Mikkelsen was the other big standout of the movie as the villain. He's an actor that I've always wanted to be in an Indiana Jones movie as a villain, because I've always enjoyed his screen presence in other movies with the villains that he's played. And I always figured, you know what, Mads Mikkelsen I think would really fit in an Indiana Jones movie. And I don't think he disappointed at all. Now getting into some of the issues that kind of let it down for me. Phoebe Waller's character is pretty insufferable throughout the entire thing. While I thought she did a good job acting wise, she is unfortunately the catalyst that sets off the entire thing. She's responsible for, just like I said, she's responsible for the entire thing getting kicked off in the first place, and why Indy is even off on another adventure. So it's both a good and a bad thing. On the plus side, though, for as smug and condescending as she is throughout the entire movie towards Indy, I do like that they at least wrote it to where he is telling her off at every single point.
So, how about those Jets?
Yeah. You're back, man.
Yeah, all right. Like I said, he's the expert. He's the MVP. He knows more than everyone else. So I'm glad that they still kept it that way. Plus, her sidekick Teddy, useless. Once again, the actor does a good job, but arguably until like maybe the last 20-25 minutes, he has nothing to do. And even the one thing that he does do, which is bringing in the second plane through the time portal, I could still argue that anyone else could have done that, like any of the other important characters in the narrative. So overall, I would say he's pretty useless. Going back to the positive side, though, I like how the movie ended. While I would argue that Crystal Skull still gave him a better ending with him finally tying the knot with Marion and taking the hat from Mutt. That's still a cute moment. Don't fight me. I like how that movie ended, and I would still argue that that is a better ending for Indiana Jones' character. I do like how they resolved everything nonetheless, because the entire premise is he's older, he's divorced from Marion, and that unfortunately goes into a lot of tropes and legacy sequels as of late that I am sick and tired of, with the romantic couple being split up every single time. Han and Leia, Dewey and Gale. Need I say more? So to see Marion come in at the end and to see them reconcile in a very sweet moment that called back to Raiders of the Lost Ark, I actually found that to be a very welcomed correction of that trope that I am coming to hate in these legacy sequels. My apologies for this review being all over the place. I was not able to pull up my Facebook post. But nevertheless, I overall enjoyed Dial of Destiny. It's better than Crystal Skull, but at the same time does not reach the grand heights of the original trilogy.
The grand heights of the original trilogy. And
yeah, it's better than Crystal Skull, as I said, but it does not. But at the same time, it does not reach the grand heights of the original trilogy. I like the acting and the premise that the film sells to you, and overall, I think there's more that works in the film that does not. So at the end, I'm going to give.
Okay.
8 out of 10. Yep, 8 out of 10. Alrighty. Yeah, that was embarrassing. But, Rod, the floor is yours.
All right. Let me pull up my review, and here we go. All right. To be honest, Indiana Jones hasn't been the same from when I was a kid. Like, since my dad introduced me to these movies as a kid at a very young age, probably like maybe 7 or 8 or something. I can't remember. Even if one of the films haven't aged well, in my opinion. But I honestly didn't like Crystal Skull, and I honestly thought that after it, I just felt like there was nowhere for this franchise to go but further down. With that, I was dreading what Indiana Jones 5 would bring me. The main reasons I watched it was because, number one, I wanted to watch as many 2023 movies as possible, and two, we all voted on it to troll this guy down here. But although I guess I'm paying the price for that now, I'm eating my own words. But truth be told, when I saw it and I left the theater, I thought it was kind of meh. Not good, but not terrible. Well, while I was driving home in the rain, I had some time to think about the movie, and just the more I thought about it, the more I could see the cracks in the armor, to the point where this movie is just, this movie is pretty bad. First of all, let me get the positives out of the way. I honestly thought the opening 20 minutes was honestly kind of entertaining. I did feel like I was at least watching an Indiana Jones film that I watched when I was a kid, like with my dad. I know some people are probably going to disagree with me on this, but I thought the de-aging effect on Harrison Ford in the opening, it was fine. Nothing great, but nothing terrible. The score is well composed. No duh, it's John Williams. Of course it's good. And it did have some good action scenes. Also, I thought the time traveling point at the end, it didn't really bother me too much, since Indiana Jones films have always had that kind of fantasy and or supernatural kind of style to it. And I honestly, I kind of mixed on what they did with Mutt. For one, I didn't like him in Crystal Skull, but it kind of ruined this. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. In terms of my negatives, let me say that most of the characters were either pointless, annoying, or generic. Harrison Ford, it just seems like he's clearly just tired of this franchise, and it really shows. It seems like he's sick of being in this franchise and just wants it to end. Even he doesn't care about him being this anymore. Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, Helena, is annoying as hell. She just doesn't know what "shut the fuck up" means. Now, I will say she's not the most annoying character in the entire Indiana Jones franchise. That honor goes to Willie. From Temple of Doom. Don't at me. But she is a close second for me. Mads Mikkelsen's character is just generic Nazi bad guy number 473. He doesn't do anything just to stand out. He's no Belloc from Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's no Dr. Schneider from Last Crusade. And the same can be said for Boyd Holbrook's character. The cinematography, and lighting, it just does not look good. Everything looks dull and ugly, just like it did with King of the Crystal Skull. It did not look pleasing. It's almost like someone has smeared Vaseline on the lens or something. And speaking of things that don't look good, the CGI and the green screen are terrible for the most part. A lot of it looks fake and unpleasing to look at. Not as bad as Crystal Skull, but still pretty bad. Also, I thought the ending with Indy and Marion just felt completely forced. It comes out of nowhere, and there was no build up to any of their connection. Shit just happens, you know. Well, overall, while this movie has its moments, the negative more than outweighs the positives here. It's not the worst Indiana Jones film for me. That would still be Crystal Skull. But I can't recommend this to people unless you're like a diehard Indiana Jones fan that has loved, and I do mean loved, every single movie in this franchise so far. I just think that it's time for Indy to just be laid to rest and retire for good. And my rating is a 3.5 out of 10. Hello?
Spoiler.
I'm not the geek informant. Thank you. Well, people can tell who the other negative person is.
Yeah.
Blame
Well,
my shitty Wi-Fi.
I guess with that, I'll go next because people already know. Might as well just get it out of the way.
My bad.
That's fine. When Kathleen looked upon the breadth of her domain, she wept, for there was nothing of Lucasfilm's legacy left to destroy. Well, that is until they make American Graffiti 3 with another brunette woman self-insert character to take away from Ron Howard's character, who will become a pathetic curmudgeon-y asshole. But best not to give them any ideas. So now we enter Lucasfilm's newest travesty, next to the butchering and bastardizing of the Star Wars and Willow franchises until nothing remains. Let's see how everyone's favorite Lucasfilm CEO destroyed this one as well. The acting from everyone was, well, serviceable. Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, despite being a complete betrayal of the character, does a good job with what he's given, but it's depressing to see him as a pathetic, washed-up alcoholic. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, fucking hell, man. How the fuck did this chick ever get a fucking platform? I will say I will defend her writing on No Time to Die because she didn't really totally ruin the film like some people will make you believe, but everything else she's done or what we've seen her in, God, she is a complete fucking annoyance. I expected worse, not gonna lie, but she was still pretty bad. Especially when half the time I'm yelling at her to shut the fuck up. Honestly, after this, she's in the pit of empty souls. I'm frankly sick of this cunt, and I do not want to see her ever again in any film for the rest of my life. You have Mads Mikkelsen as a Nazi, and you completely and utterly fuck it up and waste him. Congratulations. He's as generic and bland as they come. Then you have Discount Moroccan Short Round, who isn't annoying, but he's just kind of there and doesn't really do anything of note. Boyd Holbrook doesn't do anything of interest. Then you have the legacy characters of Marion Ravenwood and Sala showing up for like a couple minutes each, not even. They amount to pretty much nothing and are there for member berries. Toby Jones and Antonio Banderas also have pretty much no role in this movie either, but as Discount Marcus and Discount double agent guy from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they kill off Mutt because he's a straight white man. I don't fucking know. Everyone tries. I'll give them that. The pacing was dreadful. It was about 2.5 hours, but it felt like 20. It was ungodly fucking boring for most of it. None of the action scenes were engaging at all, and I just didn't care. The action in the original movies were fun and visceral. Here it was just things happening. The dialogue felt like it was written by a 5-year-old and was just cringy as hell. The CGI was bad. Not the Flash levels of bad, but still pretty bad. The de-aging is just as bad as it is in the trailer. When he's standing still, it's tolerable, but when he's moving around and trying to do action scenes, it is very noticeable. It's especially noticeable when it's an 80-year-old man voice coming out of a 40-something-year-old man body. The plot was just going through the motions of an Indiana Jones film, but without the heart and charm of the first 4 films. Say what you will about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and trust me, people have, but it at least had the charm of the first 3 movies. It is a flawed movie, but Spielberg knew the character, so he knew how to make it work in terms of tone. Mangold tries his hardest to make this movie work, and I feel like he was a hired lapdog because of his work on Logan in terms of a last hurrah for a major character that a lot of people love. Ignoring his raging temper tantrums on Twitter, that is. It's not the worst thing ever. It just felt so pointless because it reiterated points from the previous film, and it was done much better there. Plus, the writing has tons of plot holes, and you can tell the ending was a tacked on reshoot. And I am in the camp that thinks it's very dumb. This movie is just a cheap imitation of what came before. Nothing more and nothing less. If I had anything nice to say about it, is that the actors tried. The opening was fun despite the awful de-aging, the music, of course, and the third act despite being messy as fuck. Although it has another jumping the shark moment with the third act. Not as dumb as Aliens, but still very dumb. And the villains are done away with so quickly that it was honestly laughable. No giant fight out or anything, just a plane crash, and all these fuckers conveniently die. Okay. That's honestly it. I think it's safe to say that Lucasfilm is in the pit of empty souls. Fuck them. 3 out of 10.
Ready to go?
Yeah. Yes, I'm ready.
All right.
Just to give me a second.
Okay.
You're good.
You're good, man. You're good. Zach, do you think we ought to, while we're waiting for Mark, do you want to just go ahead and give Devin's score?
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, just go ahead and just go.
Because I'm just writing my last.
Okay.
Alrighty. Sadly, Devin, the cinematic Sterling, was not able to join us today, but he was able to give us his rating. He too was not a fan of the movie, and he gave it a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I went into this film with not just low expectations, but highly negative ones. Not only did I hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull with a passion, but Spielberg had stepped down as director. The only reason I agreed to watch it in the first place is because these guys wanted to see me go full Mark smash on it in our review, and I fully expected to oblige them, unleashing my frustration in an epic torrent of fury and wrath. So imagine my shock when I kind of liked it, or at least didn't hate it. I decided early on to give the film a fair chance, so I suspended my skepticism and treated it like any other movie. I remained on guard for issues, and there were plenty of them. But there was enough enjoyment there to mostly satiate me. It's very mixed, thus the split reaction. But for me, at least, it felt much closer to the indie films I watched and loved in the theater as a child than the last Abomination did. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. The film begins with an opening sequence set in the final days of World War II. Now, first of all, let me say that the de-aging technology looked fine to me. I'm usually not very picky on CGI, but I looked at this with a keen eye, and he looked just like the same Indy from the old films to me. Nor was that all. The whole sequence felt like an old-time Indian adventure of the kind he might get into in the old films. You had him once again fighting the Nazis in pursuit of a valuable and powerful religious relic, the Spear of Longinus. He follows the fleeing Nazis on a train loaded with antique treasures. Plenty of fighting along the way. Thus, although the spear turns out to be fake, the real MacGuffin turns out to be the Antikythera, an ancient Greek mechanical device used to predict astronomical positions and religion and eclipses decades in advance. This highly imaginative version is ascribed to Archimedes for simplicity's sake and endowed with the ability to predict fissures in time. Thus, the opening sequence not only offers a heaping dose of nostalgia, but also sets up the plot and serves as a bridge of sorts between the original trilogy we all know and love and this film. It also answers the question of what Indy did during the war years. From here, we fast forward to 1969 with an aging Indy ready to retire amidst a rapidly changing world celebrating the moon landing. He's a man out of time, sad and alone, with Marion divorcing him following the tragic death of their son in Vietnam. His world turns upside down, however, when his goddaughter Helena, affectionately known as Wombat, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, steps back into his life, seeking the Antikythera. She charms her way into his antique collection at the college, steals the device, and locks him in with the CIA agents pursuing him, three of whom, led by a former Nazi scientist played by Mads Mikkelsen, have their own agenda. Mads' character, Dr. Voller, is inspired by real-life Nazi scientist Werner von Braun, the man who helped America get to the moon after the war. It's not only a neat tidbit of history, but also a clever way to slide the Nazis back into the driver's seat of the main villains. Not Mads is terrific as always, with none of the overacting we saw from Kate Blanchett and the last lamentable entry in the franchise. I disagree with these guys. I don't think he's bad at all. He's not the best villain in the franchise, but he's certainly kind of quietly menacing in a way. For her part, I thought Phoebe Waller-Bridge did well with the role of Helena, even if the writing leaves much to be desired. She's likable and personable, and she's tough enough to handle herself in tight spots. The lines that made us all cringe in the trailers aren't that bad in context. Yes, she calls Indy a grave robber, but that was only because he had chided her for doing it, and she was just throwing it back into his face that he had done the same, which everyone who has seen the opening of Temple of Doom can testify he most certainly has. So that was more witty banter than anything, just more back and forth. Yes, she says that's called capitalism, but it's far from a political statement, more just a clumsy way of her saying finders keepers, a regular series staple of the series, and spell it declared. Once again, we see there is nothing you can possess which I cannot take away. Maybe clumsy writing, but it's not really terrible. She has solid chemistry with Indy, with a strong father-daughter feeling between them. Thus, the aforementioned witty banter comes across as a loving but grumpy father criticizing his petulant daughter as she defiantly throws it back in his face. She serves much the same purpose as Elsa did in The Last Crusade, a roguish, self-serving character who mirrors Indy's dark side. She even has her own short round, a street-smart Spanish-Moroccan kid named Teddy, played by Ethan Isidore, to emphasize that she does have a heart, the same purpose Ke Huy Quan served for Indy. Thus, unlike Elsa, Helena eventually comes around in the end. However, the road to get there is rough and filled with more potholes than a backcountry road in South Carolina. In broad outline, if you don't think about it too hard, it works just fine. If you look a little closer, though, you notice some major cracks. For one, they contradict her motivation. They establish that she's clearly out for her own gain. Yet Indy challenges this when he states that no one memorizes their father's notebooks, which she did, if they're only out for themselves. So which is it? Is she selfish but basically good, or is she really out to protect her father's legacy but lying to herself in the process? This is never really made clear. Furthermore, the film tries to make her bitter at Aunt Indy for not being there more as her father lost his mind. For not being there more for her as her father lost his mind. I've heard of daddy issues, but never god daddy issues. The movie should have slowed down at points for more thorough character development to clear up these issues. Nor is that the only problem. Another problem is that after the Nazis, with the help of the CIA agents, kidnap Indy, He is apparently suspected of murdering his fellow co-workers who were murdered by the Nazis. But apparently nobody saw them, men in suits, chasing him through the streets and shooting at him. So, I mean, and then again, by the end, it's just not mentioned again. It's just completely forgotten, not mentioned again. Yet another plot hole. So you see a lot of that in the film. The action, on the other hand, at least was really good, packed with all the thrills one expects of an indie film, including plenty of chase scenes, scuba diving in a shipwreck full of eels, creepy giant bugs in a cave, a full-scale battle, etc. The plot takes a turn after Dr. Volder steals the completed Antikythera from Indy and Helena, using it in an attempt to go back in time to 1939, assassinate Hitler, and lead the Nazis through the war with the benefit of hindsight. Yet the ancient Greeks didn't know about continental drift, so instead of going back in time in 1939, it takes them to the siege of Syracuse in 213 BC. Indy, feeling like life has nothing left for him, wishes to stay, but Helena knocks him out, Indy style, and brings him back anyway. Once home, he wakes up to find his old friends Sala and Marion waiting on him. As Sala and Helena leave to give them time alone, we get one final tender moment with Marion and Indy, reminiscent of the scene of the boat in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's nice for nostalgia purposes, but it really should have taken the time for them to have a serious conversation about the issues dividing them. The main reason this film works for me is that despite its flaws, and there are many, it feels like a better, more appropriate, and fitting end for Indy than the last reprehensible travesty that never should have been made. While I would have preferred for the series to have been the last Crusade, for neither one of these to have been made, and this certainly could have been much better. If I can't have that, at least this fixes somewhat what came before. So my score is a 6 out of 10.
I'm kind of surprised that Mark was actually one of the more positive ones on this stream.
Yeah.
Especially since we were expecting him to hate it the most.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I mean, I went in so incredibly negative that it kind of won me over. Honestly, I couldn't admit more.
Yeah.
So John,
Stuff actually though in Crystal Skull that I feel like does go a bit unappreciated though, because I personally at least could argue that maybe Crystal Skull gave Indy a better ending as far as the fact that him and Marion tie the knot, and then that there's a cute little moment there. You are much about to where that happened, it just takes it from him like that's nice. It feels like classic Indiana Jones humor.
But I mean, I don't see a happy ending doesn't necessarily mean the best, though. You know.
I know because the movie. The movie is more. Yeah.
The way I mean, I think Filmmaster Adam really said it the best in his review, where it was like, it was just Dial of Destiny. I think I would have probably liked it more if it didn't just try to just do away with Crystal Skull and then just did the same themes again, just so like, oh, hey, look, we did it again, but maybe this is a better movie, maybe you'll like it more, and it just comes off as like dumb. If it like tried to do something so vastly different from Crystal Skull by and doing different themes from that, like no matter what your age, you can still accumulate knowledge and friends and all that. If they just did something different from that and like had a better conclusion and not a tacked on reshoot ending, I probably would have liked it a little bit more. But the fact that like that Indy learns all of this throughout the entirety of Crystal Skull again in the last 2 picoseconds of this fucking movie, it just feels insulting. It just feels like they don't care about my intelligence as a viewer. I know nobody's going to agree with me on that, but that's just how I felt.
No, I can see your point.
I get that. Yeah, I get that.
It would have, you know what it would have been like? It would have been like if The Force Awakens opened up. It was like, it reminded me of a Simpsons joke where it would have, you know what it would have been like? It would have been like if The Force Awakens opened up with the opening text scroll and all it said was, the prequels are no longer canon. That's essentially what it feels like. It's just like, oh, yep, they're no longer canon. We're doing our own thing now. It's
like I said, I think it seems like what they were trying to do, like at times, is like backtrack on everything that Crystal Skull happened in Crystal Skull, seeing how a lot of people hated that movie.
Yeah, it's like same because the same thing happened with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
How like, oh, nobody liked Last Jedi. Okay, let's backtrack and then do our own thing now.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a plan and we didn't plan for this loose canon to do this, like some inventive ideas with Star Wars, even though Last Jedi is still a steaming pile of shit. Like, God forbid if our main protagonist is a nobody. Nope, she's got to be a clone of Palpatine. It's like, all right, what the fuck? But that's neither here nor
I
there.
think we could absolutely agree, though, that to any kind of merits, this is better than Rise of Skywalker, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Fucking,
absolutely.
Fucking Harrison Ford taking a shit for 2.5 hours would be better than Rise of Skywalker.
I was gonna say compared to Rise of Skywalker is a low bar. That's a low bar.
Because Dial of Destiny at least tries to give a positive ending for its main character, whereas the sequel trilogy as a whole just shits all over their the main character's victory in the original trilogy. So there's no positive ending.
By the way, Jay, yes, it is. Last Jedi is a steaming pile of shit. I don't give a flying fuck what you think. And second, fuck you.
Ha. But you get my point, though. Like I said,
yeah, no, I got
you.
you.
This is like Rise of Skywalker is quickly becoming like the worst finale to a franchise I have ever seen. So
yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, it could be worse. Well, what do you think's worse? I'm curious. I have a feeling what you'll say, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker or the last 3 Fast and Furious movies?
I'm actually going to need time to think about that because Fast and the Furious is technically still building toward its finale, whereas Rise of Skywalker already established itself as a finale, a shitty finale, but still a finale. So probably Rise of Skywalker because I can really.
Well, I thought you would say Fast and Furious because there's multiple movies, where it should have just ended with Furious 7 because Paul Walker's dead. But the fact that it's multiple movies, it's like, oh, I thought you would have said that, but I get what you're saying. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, because I could easily look at Fast. I guess I could easily just look at Fast 7, say the rest isn't canon. So Rise of Skywalker for sure.
Yeah, but going back to Dial G for geriatric.
It's something I actually kind of liked, by the way, is that being that Disney's involved with the production, they could have easily had some kind of interference and fluffed over all the dark streak that the original 3 had. But they still had gunshots. You had graphic death for the villains. So I'm glad that Disney could have easily interfered and just fluffed things over, but they didn't.
But even then, it didn't, because this is just the problem with today's movies. And I'm not talking about like I'm not trying to sound like a crotchety old man or anything.
Yes,
it's just like it's
a crotchety old man.
It's just a different landscape and a different film culture to what we have now versus what we had in the 70s and 80s. It's just like in the 70s and 80s, it's just like there's the more visceral brutality that you can't really get away with now. It has to be a little bit more flashy, a little bit more creative. Because, when you compare, again, like fucking Last Crusade and this, Dial of Destiny doesn't really have, as I said, the visceral nature. Like, you don't feel the punches, you know what I mean? Take, for instance, Last Crusade, the famous action scene that takes place on the tank. There's it's just like you feel every punch, you feel the blood spewing from it. It's just everyone's dusty, miserable, and it's still fun, but you still feel like you're dirty and disgusting, and it's great. It's great. Here, you don't really have that. It's just kind of
The
like,
closest they get to it is the chase scene with those little weird cars, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have like I think Chris Stuckman said this in one of his videos way back when, but when he was talking about Crystal Skull, and I agree with him on this. There's no like triumphant return of Indy, if you know what I mean. Like he's not like getting beat on the ropes and he makes a triumphant return sort of thing. Like when he is about to when he's flying off the gun in the tank scene in Last Crusade, or he's fighting the big guy with the plane in Raiders, and like he's on the ropes. It looks like he's not gonna make it, but then you hear the John Williams music swell, and he fucking managed to find something in him and beats the hell out of him. You never really get that moment either. Like it's
Yeah.
just kind of like things happening. As I said, it's just things happening. It's like, all right, okay, that's
Shit
kind of
happens. The movie.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
what a lot of movies feel like nowadays. Just things happening. It's like, okay, great.
You know what I'm kind of admittedly mixed on is the fact that Indy is shot and injured on the plane for like the last 20 minutes, and you have what's her name kind of taking the role in the action, you know, with the rescuing him. I'm like, nah. I would have reversed the roles. Helena gets shot, and it's Indy that has to get on the plane, the second plane through the time hole thing. You know, basically reverse the role.
China, Zach.
The Sky Jana.
Or that, or good joke. The Devil's Anus.
Sure.
We'll go with that.
But because see, it's an Indiana Jones movie, so have him take the action. So I would have reversed the roles. Helena's the one who shot and injured, and they have her on the plane.
The problem is for two reasons. One, Harrison Ford is old as shit. He can barely function in action scenes. It's like what it is in The Flash with Michael Keaton. Spot the stunt man. It's they couldn't have him do that, and also woman hear me roar type shit. Like I'm the new. I'm the Tomb Raider now. Suck dicks.
It's Kathleen Kennedy's agenda.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Agenda.
Her self-insert character.
Yeah.
That she has in every franchise. I can't wait for when they do American Graffiti 3. It's gonna be amazing, right, guys?
There was a 2.
I didn't even know there was a 2.
Yeah, there's a second one. It was in '79, I think.
Then again, I haven't even seen the first one, so
In the first one, I knew there was a second one. So
I know you.
Oh, we got Rome's in the chat. What's up, Rome?
Yeah.
Jason's in the chat too.
Have you seen the second one, Mark?
No, I haven't seen the second one. I didn't even bother with that.
Yeah, I've heard it's not good.
Yeah.
I'm very distant with American Graffiti. I haven't seen the first one in years, and I didn't even know there was a second one. So
there's I've seen bits and pieces of American Graffiti.
But I haven't seen any of the American Graffiti movies.
In terms of Lucasfilm IPs, I haven't seen American Graffiti and Willow, but it's on my list.
Oh, Willow's really good.
I've heard the Disney Plus show is fucking.
I didn't see it. I didn't see the Disney Plus show, and I didn't bother.
Heard it's real bad, but it's like no Val Kilmer. What's the point? I understand why he couldn't, but still.
Yeah.
But it's just it's just a lot of this film just seems kind of tired. I had a headache. I kind of have a headache right now just talking about this movie, but it's just I'm just kind of done. Like I just fucking Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise, show the world what action films are supposed to be. Please, for the love of God. I have heard that Mission Impossible 7 is tracking very well.
Well, I heard it's tracking for like a $60 million week opening or something like that. So.
It seems like the only truly great movie that came out this month that was great was
not this month anymore. Technically, last month because it's July now.
Yeah. Was Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, but even then, people are kind of starting to sour on it. So who knows how that's going?
I love Across the Spider-Verse.
No, I know. I'm not saying everybody is. It's just because the biggest problem for a lot of people was the fact it feels like the first 2 acts of a movie, and it doesn't feel complete. But even then, like they don't even try to make it complete. As I said, was saying.
How it's a
Across
it's a
Spider-Verse
better
versus-
cliffhanger ending than Fast X. Because here's the thing, right? Here's how I could compare the two. Like, Fast X literally feels like a movie that it's not like there's not like actually a cliffhanger ending crafted for the film. It just cuts off and stops randomly somewhere. Whereas Spider-Verse actually feels like it has a cliffhanger ending crafted for the film to properly hype you up for the next movie.
Yeah. Zach, I have a question. Since you're the only one that's seen Fast X, because the rest of us don't care, what did the last Fast X end on? I mean, I don't care about spoilers.
It ends on because you know how in the trailer it's showing this action stuff on a dam where there's an explosion and Dom's driving his car down the dam. The whole third act is at the dam where it ends with Jason Momoa. It shows that he had explosives set up all over the dam,
Knock it off.
and he's setting on, and it shows he presses a button. The explosion's about to go off. Dom is looking at his son and all that, and it cuts.
So the movie just stops out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's got the earwig and the witch syndrome.
Yeah.
Where it
Literally
stops.
just thinking that.
I was gonna say in the witch, where the movie just stops out of nowhere. It doesn't even have an ending.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just like it. Yeah. It just God. These movies are just.
Yeah.
Like I think 3 out of 5 of my top 5 of the year are like these small indie movies because it's like they're just so much fucking better than these big budget franchises. Because at this point, I just don't care anymore. Like sorry, Mark, you go.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. I was pretty much done anyway.
I just was going to say, John, that they really shouldn't spend $300 million on this.
No.
The indie franchise, the Deadline article I was talking about earlier, he made a really good point. These films have never done that really, really great at the box office. Now, they did solid, but they were never like Star Wars. The first one made like some little over 200 million at the box office. Yeah, which is a lot for the 80s, a whole lot. But still, the second one made 179 million, and the third one made like 197, something like that, just under 200 million. So even the two,
they weren't big box
Crystal
office.
Skull made nearly 800 million.
I don't want to say critical darlings, but they were like more like they were more well
the
liked
second one
than
wasn't.
well profitable.
They hated that.
But it's just like they're cult classics in a way.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say cult. They're like on the verge of cult, because I know like cult classic is a very specific term. It's like something that failed and then got stuff. So it's kind of like almost on the verge of a cult classic in that respect. But they still made enough money.
Yeah,
still
did
well,
like,
and
even
people
Crystal
still like
Skull.
them. It's just like not because I don't know. It's just
like Crystal Skulls had a $100 million weekend opening and made $300 million, and they know how this works. Disney knows how this shit works. And he made the point that the reason Crystal Skull had such a big opening, the last one was Last Crusade, which everybody loved. When your last film is good, it helps set up your next one. So that's why it has such a big opening. So but then
and on top of that, it's been
Cinema
so
Store
long
and it only wound up with $300 million. Totally.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the fucking budget of this movie.
Exactly.
I don't know.
They spent the entire box office of the last movie on this one.
Because it just like feels. But to be fair, it felt. I think the reason for that is because they were just like trying to make this a success when they knew it wouldn't be, type of thing. Where because it was like. It was probably reshoots and production problems and delays and like all this other shit of like trying to make this movie work. It probably would have been, I think it was like $295 was the budget. $295.
Yeah, $295.
So in reality, I think it probably would have been a lot less than that if it wasn't for the production problems. Maybe 200, maybe 215, 225. Still a lot and still way too much. But I don't think it would have been as much if it wasn't for the production problems. It just feels very dumb on Disney's part, and I feel like they're kind of grasping at straws at this point. I don't want to say Disney's failing because Disney is definitely not failing. They're still making money. It's just the fact they're not making money as much as they are because one, nobody's going to theaters anymore because the fucking ticket prices are like your firstborn child when you fucking walk in, and so it's like, what's the point? They're just gonna wait for streaming, and that's when they're all gonna make their money. So it's like, what's the point anymore?
How do you even make money on streaming anyway? I mean, streaming, it's just like the
And there's
movie's there for you to watch. And then,
there's on demand.
There's on
like
demand. There's like
Vudu.
Vudu, Amazon,
Exactly.
that kind of shit.
And,
Red
pl- and,
Box.
plus, and plus, I would assume that that studios would make money from like Netflix and all for having it on
like
their
a
streaming
deal.
service.
Like every 100 people, they get $10,000.
Yeah.
like, you know what the big one is that grinds my gears personally, as far as it's just freaking stupid? The theater and streaming at the same time. Like, say, the Halloween Kills an Andrew like that, Wonder Woman 84.
I was gonna say every
Suicide
Warner
Squad.
Brothers movie in 2021 was like that.
I mean, to be fair, they were still feeling the effects of the pandemic, and people still
That's true.
didn't want to go out, so there was that as well.
That's true.
Like,
So,
I'm not
at first they
shit-
didn't have a fucking choice. Like something like Doom, which should have been a big theater experience, had to be released on HBO Max because they would have lost a shit ton of fucking money if they didn't. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
know.
not
I feel
like
like with Halloween, it makes sense why it was released on both at the same time because it's a horror movie. Those don't usually cost that much, so it's gonna make its money back fairly easily.
Yeah.
So,
not to
clean.
shift the conversation to Halloween, but like with Halloween Kills, I can kind of get that. But then, but I was really scratching my head when they did it with Halloween Ends.
I mean, it's not. Halloween wasn't the only one that they did that with. They also did that with the Firestarter remake, releasing that same day, like on
Oh, yeah,
Peacock,
that's
the same day in theaters. So
Because let's write it down, right? For all the ones that did that with theater and streaming, Suicide Squad was a theater failure. Firestarter bombed.
yes,
And shit, what were the box office for Halloween Kills and Ends?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because
I think they made their money back, but I don't
Kills
know.
Kills was still successful in theaters, but I forgot how much Ends made. But the point is, more
gonna do-
oftentimes than not, you put it in theater and streaming, that affects the theaters.
And the thing is that they're going to do the same thing with the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. It's going to be released day to day on Peacock and in theaters too.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, that one actually looks kind of interesting. Like, I know nothing about the games or the lore. I mean, I know the basic stuff, what the premise is, and all. But for the most part, my
But even then,
it looks kind of interesting. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, my girlfriend, her son is a big FNAF fan, so I will be taking him to see that when it comes out.
Do you guys all think that looks good? Like, any interest?
I'm intrigued.
I'm intrigued. I'm curious about it.
I know a little bit about Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm not hugely into the lore, so who knows? I know a little bit, but not a ton. But yeah.
But
and
did y'all hear, by the way, that they tried doing the same? Excuse me, the same thing with Top Gun Maverick. They wanted to do theater and streaming on Paramount Plus, or I don't know if Paramount Plus is a thing, but some streaming site wanted to try and make that deal.
But I mean, Tom Cruise demanded that it had to be seen in theaters.
Yeah, he's seeing it. He's like promoting everything right now. He promoted The Flash. Obviously, he probably just promoted that just for people to go to the theater to see it. He's promoting Barbie. He's promoting Oppenheimer. Obviously, he's promoting Mission Impossible. But in terms of I think he promoted Little Mermaid too. He's promoting fucking everything just because he wants people to go to the theater because he doesn't want the theater experience to die. Neither do I, but Jesus Christ, I don't want to have to open a fucking mortgage every time I go to the fucking movies.
Either that, how much you want to bet every time they do that? He's like, go see this in theaters. Now, where's my $10,000 check? Cha-ching! Bye!
That's why I think Tom Cruise is the freaking man, though, because he believes in the theater experience, and so do I.
Oh yeah, we all do.
Oh, yeah. Because dude, like the day, because that's. I mean, I was gonna go see Dial of Destiny anyway, but I'm making a point for this that I went and saw Dial of Destiny on the big screen when I could have just watched online. But the thing is, I don't want theaters to die. I mean, because the day that theaters go away, that's genuinely going to be a huge hole.
I mean, it's kind of the same way on how like it was really heartbreaking when rental stores pretty much closed down.
Dude,
they went in the way of the stores.
Yeah, when our local Blockbuster store shut down, like where we used to live in at Gresham, dude, like that broke my heart because me and my sister went there all the time, and it was when I was little. She'd rent me the Thomas DVDs and all that, and she'd rent her movies. Like, so that was a pastime for us. We went there all the time.
I was saying, hey, at least you're closer to the last ever Blockbuster than the rest of us.
Yeah, because it's like in Bend, I think.
Yeah. How far has Bend from you?
I think a 3 hours ride by car.
Okay. I was gonna say that's still closer than the rest of us, we're all the way on the East Coast.
Yep, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is my claim to fame. # best cool kid. Vote down below.
No.
I'm screwing.
I know. Do you kind of just want to end it right now since there's really nothing left to talk about with this movie?
How about we, even if the rankings are obvious, but we could each rank the 5 movies.
Sure.
If you want. Like for me, I guess I'll go first. Like to rank them, it's actually pretty easier than I thought. Crystal Skull is number 5 for me. It's actually a movie I found newfound appreciation for. The flaws are still apparent: nuking the fridge, swinging with the monkeys, and the CGI, all that. But other than that, as far as but narratively, I just think this is as far as what the adventure is. I think this is a fine, serviceable indie adventure, and it closes out nice. Him and Marion tie the knot and all that, and I like Mutt more than most people. He's not one of my favorite characters, so that's number 5. Number 4 is the Dial of Destiny. It's better than Crystal Skull overall because I think that overall the action is able to look more practical and is able to more so match the feel of the original trilogy more than Crystal Skull did. And the acting all around is really good, even if I don't like some of the characters. And I found the ending really sweet with how it tied into the Raiders. Number 3 is Temple of Doom. I always found it odd that this is the other indie film that people said is the worst one outside of Crystal Skull because it feels just different enough while still feeling like Indiana Jones, something that he would get himself into. And I like seeing a different side to him, with being more merciless than he was in the other movies. Number 2 is Raiders. It's the one that started it all. One of the greatest action films of all time. And while it's second on my list, as far as the indie adventures, what the adventure is, this is definitely my favorite of the adventures, if that makes sense. So, and plus, it has the most, out of all the villain deaths in this franchise, this has the most satisfying death for the villains, melt in their faces. Number 1 is Last Crusade. It's always been my favorite one, which I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take or not. Like I don't really know what the hot take would be with the indie franchise. So, but I love that they bring his father in. The chemistry between them is nice, and the ending was really heartwarming with how he saves his dad and all that. So, not too brief. Like maybe I might make a video soon going more in detail, but that's my ranking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. For me, my favorite is easily Raiders. Number 2 would be Last Crusade. 3 would be Temple of Doom. 4 would be Doll of Destiny, and dead last would be Crystal Skull.
For me, Dial, Crystal, Raiders, Temple, Last Crusade.
No, I was just saying I'm surprised that Temple of Doom is above Raiders, John.
I watched it more than Raiders. I think I've seen Raiders like twice. I don't hate the movie. It's very good. It's just like I don't know why. I just could never get into it. Maybe I need to watch it again, but
I mean, I liked as a kid. I liked Temple of Doom better too. So I mean, that was my favorite one as a kid. But for me, I would say obviously Crystal's at the bottom. That's pure shit. I mean, they just jumped the shark on that one. And
do you mean they nuked the fridge?
And it's not even that. The ancient aliens thing got to me because I mean,
I'm
traveling this, but at least this was tied to an actual historical artifact. And
Yeah,
they used it such a way like.
Yeah, I was just being funny. So
No. You're right. I mean, I see what you're saying. Yeah, they nuked the fridge, definitely. But I mean, that didn't bother me so much. But I mean,
neither did I. I mean, if you could survive, I mean, nuke the fridge. Yeah, that part was stupid, but so was free falling on a raft or
that was even at the time as a kid,
a tank.
Even as the time as a kid, I thought that's dumb. So I mean,
it's all.
But anyway, he didn't free fall on the tank. He grabbed onto the side.
No,
But I mean, anyway, 4 is Dial, which kind of mixed, but I think it's a little more positive than negative. I think so. I was, but 3 I would say is Temple, even though it was my favorite as a kid. But I still love it. I still really, really love that film. It's has some real strengths, great action in it. I love the horror feel to it. Mola Ram makes one hell of an enemy. I mean, Jesus, how do you not love a guy who you can rip your fucking heart out and show it to you before you die? God damn. That's cool. Taliban. Yeah, Mola Ram, he was a great enemy. Probably my second favorite one after Belloc. Number 2 is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Classic. I see what John means. It's kind of there are some slow parts in there, but it's just such a.
I don't hate the movie. Like I would say, Last Crusade. Well, Last Crusade is one of my favorite movies of all time. That's like 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
I would say Temple is like 8.5, and then Raiders is like 8. Mm-hmm. Like I love all 3. All 3 are fantastic movies. It just Last Crusade just like has like everything. Yeah. Plus it's got Sean Connery. That's just like an automatic win right there.
Exactly. And that's why that's my number 1, because I mean those two had such amazing chemistry. I mean the thing is he was only a few years older.
Yeah, he was only like 5 years older than him or something ridiculous.
But I mean,
and even that has a stupid moment that like where Henry was like, "Oh, I got an idea," and meanwhile, the pigeons will fucking fly through the window. I mean, I love and fucking impale them. Like,
and he's like, "Get back here!" And he's like,
they managed to make. They made James Bond into a fucking nerd. They made him into a bookworm.
Exactly.
I love it. Because I mean, it's he said it'd be like, Dad's not up for this. He's not a field guy. I mean, so I mean, I love that.
Honestly enough, I've never really thought about this, but I was just thinking about it. His dad may be my second favorite character in the whole franchise.
I mean, that's just obvious,
Yeah, exactly.
And plus, the funniest joke in the whole franchise to me is that one moment between them where like he kind of slaps. He's like, "That's for blasphemy."
That's not funny to me. That's serious. Because I mean, that's not funny. That's serious. Because I mean, he was making the point. He was making a good point there. That this was about good versus evil. This is no time to be glib. This is good versus evil.
I guess then I guess that the other funny bit would be is like, Dad, we're barely in range or whatever it was. They can't see us.
No. Funniest part.
Son,
Don't call me
son,
Junior.
they got us.
God, it's-
And then he
Don't
points
call
to the
me-
tail of the plane.
Oh yeah, that's the second funniest part.
How-
Son, sorry, they got us. But the funny part, don't call me Junior. I told you. Don't
Or
call me.
How did you know she was a Nazi? She talks in her sleep.
Or when he punches the Nazi out the window, no ticket.
Oh yeah, that.
Or don't go between them. Go between them. Are you crazy?
Like you, and like I was saying earlier, like, I don't know if it's would it be a hot? Is that like considered a hot take? Maybe ranking Crusade above any of them?
No.
Usually
No, I mean, a lot of
love
people do.
Crusade. It's
Yeah, a lot of
usually Raiders or Crusade are considered the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my older brother. I think he prefers Last Crusade over Raiders. I still say Raiders is a little bit better, but
Yeah, I mean, it's still great.
absolutely.
Great film. I
Yep.
don't know. I think
And,
I agree with Mark. Is like, I think I realized that at the time, because anybody who knew me when I was really young, I was like afraid of my own shadow. I didn't like horror movies. I was too scared of them. I was like afraid of everything. And I think I didn't realize it at the time is like the Temple of Doom was kind of like my entrance into that, because there's a lot of scary, fucked up moments
They're
in
really-
that movie.
Yeah. That's
Um,
the movie that-
that and I think Dexter were the biggest
movie.
like entrances into horror for me at the time. I didn't realize it, but it like looking back, it kind of makes sense that would be the case.
Yeah.
Because Temple of Doom has a lot of fucked up shit in it, and it is great. And I don't hate Kate Capshaw like a lot of other people do. I don't think she's that bad, but
Apparently she was.
I think her
Apparently she was like really cool on set, from what I heard. Like she was just really, really good to work with.
Yeah, because she and Steven Spielberg started fucking. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean,
I thought they were fucking
Yeah.
before the movie.
no, I think they started. Maybe it was because I don't know, because he had a girlfriend and she was actually supposed to play that part, and she was actually in Inner Space. I forget what her name is. She was an actress, and they broke up. They were on the outs, and then he got with Kate Capshaw. Then he, so I don't know.
Yep. And kind of funny though, isn't it?
Okay, so she married him in 91.
Yeah,
So, okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
But they did have they started knocking the boots and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. During the production, I don't know why I thought I was reading that it was beforehand, and then he hired her because of that. But no, I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it might have been specifically because I know he broke up with his girlfriend. They broke up sometime before he started production on Indy, so
Yeah.
he didn't get the
Yep.
part. So, I don't know. Maybe he met somebody else before then. Maybe I don't know.
And plus balls of she's got balls of steel in that one scene with the bugs. I mean, come on. Even if I was like one of the most professional actors on the planet, I don't think I could get through that.
I couldn't. But I mean, I don't know, because I don't hate in. I thought her scream actually worked in the horror sense as a great horror scene because it has more of the horror elements. So her scream works in that context, I think. I mean, yeah, I thought it was annoying, but I mean, honestly, I'm like, I don't hate it. It's fine. It works as
Yeah.
So
Yep. And it's funny.
I'm the only one that doesn't like Willie still.
no, I mean, because she's always been seen as annoying. I just don't hate her as much anymore. And I always found her annoying. I just loved every other element of the movie so much, I mean,
Yeah, and I kind of like.
I love the gross out shit.
It's interesting because, and I was also reading this. I didn't realize this until much later, because a lot of the woke agenda people go after the scene where like the Indian people are eating the bugs and snakes and shit, and they're like, "Oh, that's racist because you're showing these people that are eating these terrible things. It's such a stereotype." And apparently, that was the point. Steven Spielberg wrote it in a way, and he's like, and one of the actors was saying this, who was in the scene. He's like that Steven Spielberg. He's very funny because he wrote it in a way where he made the stereotypes. He fed into the white people stereotypes of foreigners.
Exactly.
Where what they did is of course the out of touch white people would be like, oh, of course these heathens, these Indian people, they don't eat like real cuisine. They eat bugs and snakes and shit. And then they're like, okay, then if that's what you think of us, then that's what we're gonna fucking serve you. Here's your chilled monkey brains. It's like all that shit. I'm like, that's actually really inventive and really interesting. But the satire, of course, goes over the heads of all these people. It went over my head. I'm like, but that's like a really interesting thing that Spielberg did, and it brings it into a whole new light, and I kind of appreciate that.
One of the funniest scenes in the movie, actually, for me.
Wait, Zach. Mark Rose's hand first, then Rob, then you can go.
Yeah, I would just say that's a great point. It's kind of like Archie Bunker, the Archie Bunker show. Racists did not totally did not get that he was making fun of Archie Bunker. He was the butt of the jokes. Everybody was laughing at the bigot, but bigots like Archie Bunker, just like, yeah, I agree with him. But the rest of us were like, no, this guy's ridiculous.
Yeah, because the whole point of Archie Bunker was like he was an idiot. Like he didn't. I don't want to say that in like a mean way. Like he just like that's what he grew up with.
What's up, Bonzo?
Hey, that's what he grew up with. That's all he knew, and it was over the course of the show that he learned to like not be like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like that was the whole fucking point. And then ironically, the first gay kiss technically on television was on All in the Family when Sammy Davis Jr. kissed Archie Bunker. It was on the cheek, but it was still showing it nonetheless. And it's like, oh, that's funny. But anyway, sorry, Rob, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just like while you guys were talking, I noticed someone was in the chat. I was just waving hi. So. But Zach, you can go on.
Sorry,
yeah,
Mark hasn't really been talking.
And
much,
it's funny. Yeah, well, it's funny, right? Because I was just thinking that this is the first time that I've had a ranking that isn't a hot take. And it's like, who are you and what have you done with Zach Gaxiola? He's supposed to be the bad boy.
I will say, well, you more than make up for it by saying Dial of Destiny is a good film because it sucks and you have terrible taste, as we all know. So you make up for it with that, but at least you're mindful enough that you have Last Crusade as the favorite.
Honestly, Zach, I'll say honestly, the Dial has got a really, really split reaction.
It's very
like 2.1, 2.3, something like that on Letterboxd or something like that.
So, going back to Dial of Destiny, was it really a surprise to anyone that they actually had to use the dial as a time travel and all?
I already knew because I was reading
that already.
We already talked about that.
Yeah,
we all kind of. I read leaks, so I knew the ending before it even because I read about it because I didn't care about spoilers for this fucking movie. So
Yeah, but I knew that they were going to have the time travel thing. So.
Yeah, I knew they were going to have time travel. I think initially I thought they were going to use the device to create some type of time travel, and that sounds really dumb. But the way they did it, I'm like, okay. No, I think I did hear that it was something like it didn't cause time travel; it just kind of detected time rifts or something like that. And sure enough, that's what it was. It detected rifts in time or predicted.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
But by the way, before we end it, I think that John, don't you think it's funny that our plan to piss off this guy backfired badly?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm happy that he liked it. I'm not gonna rage. I'm not gonna scream. You know what? I'm glad that he actually liked an Indiana Jones movie post last year.
Yeah, I am too. I'm glad.
Yeah, I still like Crystal Skull. I know I'm a dirty heathen, but I enjoy it. Here's the thing, though, because we were raging in the group chat at each other, and I just want to clarify something. I do, and I did say this in my review. I want to clarify something just to get everything out there. I don't mind about the alien twist. I said I didn't mind the alien twist in Indiana Jones. Now, however, I never said that it wasn't completely fucking stupid, because it is. And I get why you hate it. Here's the thing. Because here's the thing. Now, what you have said is a little bit superficial, but I think here's the thing. But before you get mad at me, I think I know the real reason why you hate the ancient aliens thing. Because as a history guy, it's terrible, because the whole idea of ancient aliens is really offensive and like actually really fucking racist as fuck.
Yeah,
that's why I don't like it.
I
because
really don't.
The whole basis, like, oh, these ancient peoples, they obviously couldn't do these crazy things. It had to be fucking aliens.
Exactly.
That's the thing I don't like.
Exactly.
Now, in terms of, if we ignore that elephant in the room and just looking at it as sort of an Indiana Jones movie with dumb things that always happen, I don't mind it. Yeah. I will watch the movie and I'll enjoy it. As I said, it's a flawed movie. If I were to give it a rating, I'd probably give what you gave Dial. I'd probably give it like a 6, maybe a 6.5. I still enjoy it. I still nailed its themes well. Harrison Ford does a good job. Everyone does a good job, even Shia LaBeouf. Yeah. But to me, that is the big elephant in the room. And I did want to clarify that, because I don't want to defend it, because the way I grasped for what you were talking about was like, oh, I don't like it just because aliens don't belong in Indiana Jones film. And that's what I got mad. I'm like, oh, that's so superficial, because the way you made it sound, it's like the similar argument of like, oh, I hate Halloween 3 because Michael Myers isn't in the movie type of thing. But then I was like, wait a minute, he's a history guy.
Exactly.
He probably hates it the same. Yeah.
Because it plays into the whole History Channel. It's like the History Channel with ancient aliens. Yeah, I really find that. That's why I fucking hate the History Channel, because for them doing that shit.
Yeah, because
because that's I can accept. You like the Ark and the Shankara stones, the Holy Grail, because those are kind of legends from history, actual legends from history.
Yeah.
This bullshit about ancient aliens, and plus, those are more like religious objects. There's always been kind of a religious. If anything, this is one of the flaws of this one. They did use an actual historical artifact, because they did find such a device on a shipwreck that they found in 1901. Then they cleared off one of the debris on cleared off the rocks and found this device in 1902 from that shipwreck, old Roman shipwreck, that they called the Antikythera. That did use apparently to predict astronomical events and like eclipses and shit. But I mean, at least it was used an actual historical thing. But I mean, I do wish they had kept with the religious themes. That they, I thought maybe
the thing is, in this day and age, religious might not have been the way to go.
Because like the Spear Longinus had the same thing that they had already ascribed to the Ark. It made an army invincible. That was always the legends about that. So that would have been.
That was because was that the spear that stabbed Jesus Christ, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, the legend of that. So I mean.
See, I'm not a horrible Catholic, just kind of a terrible Catholic. I still know my shit.
Yeah. So I mean, would have preferred some type of, religion. I mean, at least this was some. Plus, the ancient Greeks, that kind of fits with them. So I mean, but
anyway, sorry. I just wanted to.
I was going to say, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I would say, as someone who liked it, go and see it, and if you like Indiana Jones, go see it, and maybe you'll find more worth in it than what meets the eye. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but I would say this deserves to be seen in theaters just for the sake of it. Because the last thing that I'll like really end it on is that this really is the end of an era for a lot of things with this movie. It's the final film of this series, the last big physical action role that we'll ever see Harrison Ford in, and it's the last time we'll ever see John Williams grace a movie with his great music. So,
yeah. Well, it's like I said about the post-track scores. I mean, younger audience, 45 and up like me, tended to like it more. Younger audience did not like it as much. So,
yeah, it's like it definitely reminiscent of Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's like the older people that remember him didn't like it, while the newer people that knew of the legend of Freddie Mercury were like, it's sanitized and that kind of thing.
Yep. Women tend to be a little more positive too. But at the same time, 58% of the audience is still male. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was.
Apparently, a interviewer was talking with Harrison Ford, and she was like, "You know what? I still find you hot. How do you do it?" And he's like, and he was like taken aback, like, "How the fuck do I answer this?" He's like, "I was born with this body. I work it the way I want," or something like that. And I'm like, "That's a very Harrison Ford thing to say." It's like, but like, what else are you supposed to fucking say to that? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
even as an 80-year-old.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Let's try to like wrap this up.
Yeah.
Rob
So
is
should
getting
we
bored.
announce what the next movie is going to be for our channel?
Isn't it Barbie or something? Or no, that's later.
That's the later. It's Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
A couple weeks. No, yeah. We
Yeah, a
got
couple weeks. And I am
Couple.
hosting. It's gonna be a fun time.
Yep.
nice.
All right then. So I guess that is going to wrap it up then for our review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
Tune in next time when, as we said, John will be hosting the review for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And with that being said, you know who we are, you know how we roll, and we will see you all
To the
next
space
time.
between spaces.
Later, fellas.
Bye.